Hi, it's been a long time since I checked in. I've been back from my Churchill Fellowship for a couple of months now, and it's been really hard to try and distill all the amazing experience I had and put it into the report. So I'm at the draft stage right now and refining it. But I just thought I'd check in and have a bit of a chat. This week there's been two events, World Cotton Day and World Circular Textiles Day. And yet when we look at this, we've got this challenge of a lot of conflicting messages in the system. There's a lot of pressure in the EU for regulations, and there's a lot of frustration amongst people that understand product and quality that these regulations may not drive the change that we want to have. So I thought I'd summarise the challenge in a tale of 3 jackets. And so I have with me 3 items that all weigh about 500 grams each. 1, a cotton hoodie, 100% cotton. 2, a polyester hoodie, brushed on the inside. And 3, a wool jacket, a wool suit jacket that is merino wool from Australia, and it's got a Bemberg lining, so a cellulose lining. So these 3 items are about the same weight of textiles. Okay, slightly different purpose, but they'd all fit a medium-sized man. And yet at the moment, in the system that's being designed to score these for sustainability with no other information other than generically these content, the wool jacket's going to score terribly, the cotton garment's going to score bad, and the polyester garment's going to score well. Well, this is a bit odd, because we're trying to achieve circularity. And really at the end of the day, what that's about is system balance, so that what we take and what we leave at the end of the day doesn't leave a mess behind. And the reason I just wanted to use these 3 examples is actually really simple. At the end of the day, if I didn't look after this jacket and left it around, it would get eaten by moths and the cellulose lining could eventually break down in my soil. Essentially, I could safely dispose of it in my own home or back garden. And the same goes with the cotton hoodie. It's going to last a really long time. It could last 20 years if we look after it. But at the end of the day, it's come from plants, and if we slow the system down enough, we could just have that go back to the ground eventually. Yet we need to be sure the dyes are safe, but essentially we could run these systems in balance. Our natural fibre systems, for an incredibly long time, until only a couple of 100 years ago, there were no piles of waste. That's why, apart from really high-end expensive clothing, there's not much old clothing in museums. It was used until it dropped, and reused and remade and patched and all the rest of it. So that's how we used our natural fibres. They were in systems in balance. And yet this polyester hoodie that's plastic scores the best. But if I just leave this around at my home, the moths aren't going to touch it. The mould isn't going to get it. If I put it in my garden, it will still be there in decades and centuries. So what this tells me is, while we're trying to measure all the inputs and everything of our system, we're struggling to do the right thing with the data, because how can it be that systems with natural fibres are deemed to definitely be terrible unless otherwise proven, and yet we know we could safely dispose of them? And yet the plastic garment, which apparently scores better, I have no safe end of life in my own home for it. Surely that means that we've got something a little bit out of kilter in the way that we're using the data. It doesn't mean that we're not trying to do the right thing, but maybe we have to have a re-look at how we're valuing what in the system. And I can only suggest that really this comes back to the fact that we're counting what's easy to count rather than what we need to count. And what we need to count is our ability to balance the system rather than just measure what went into it until we got it to point of sale. So as we look at textile circularity this week, as we see struggles, we see SOEX in Germany is closing after 10 years of recycling garments, and we see that lots of businesses are really struggling right now that are doing the right thing as belts are tightening and the cost of living crisis. How do we stick to the logic that our ancestors used and practiced, because it was the only thing, that we used the natural fibres from our environment, we made them into long-lasting beautiful things, and eventually, after an upcycled and re-cared for life, they went back to the earth. How can we make sure that we don't lose sight of what's working as we try and make regulations and scoring systems to foster what's going to work in the future for the world that our kids are in.